What if I could tell you this coin right here is a really good reference for you to be able to understand how the United States Mint and how the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, this coin right here, oops, sorry, tells you how they are funded. This is a great resource, and you can always use the 1995 double die to remind you of that key point. Now, we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the funding of the United States Mint and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, because they are both a part of the Treasury. We're going to look at some myths. We're going to look at some of the calculations, the circulating coins, the profits that they make, where they go, how they're set up. We're going to dispel some of the items that are there, and then we're going to come back and we're going to open up for questions on the information that we provide. So this is the show for you today. Welcome to Stack Collector. Hope you're doing well. Obviously, my co-host is Tiger Stacker. Tiger Stacker, how you doing, sir?
Hello, brother.
How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just enjoying the day with the wife. Not working. It's kind of nice to not work once in a while.
What are your thoughts about what silver and gold are doing right now?
I'm the part of me that has it already is very grateful. The part of me that wants to buy more is not very grateful. But I also think that we're going to see higher and higher prices. So this might be the current floor. So when I get a chance, I buy. And as I always say, I try to do dollar cost averaging, but that's based upon when I get payday, not really based upon any other scheme that when I have time, when I have payday, I buy it. But it's climbing. And with everything that's going on, even recently in our government, with furloughs and everything, I have a feeling it's going to cause the price to go up. It can cause, what I'm hearing is the Fed is also planning on another rate cut, which is going to increase the prices even further. So we might be at a new floor. Time will tell. What do you think?
I've been watching it, listening to some of the conversations that are going about, trying to see what people are thinking about. Are they looking to buy? Are they looking to sell? Are they looking to hold? Just to kind of get a feel for what the community is looking at and what they expect. I see a lot of people thinking that silver and gold is going to shoot through the roof, primarily silver. But as you and I have talked about, I have a little bit of that cautious optimism in that what goes up must come down. And so, again, looking at history and looking at where things are at, I got a question. What happens if you hold and it pulls back, like it has in the past, and it drops $9 in a couple of days? What happens if you're not around and you're not able to do anything with it until that time comes? Where are you going to be? And so I'm going to do something. I've kind of talked a little bit about this. I'm going to take some profits. I'm going to be selling when it hits, if it hits 50. I'm going to be taking some profits. I'm going to be investing in some other metals. Now, that's just me. I'm not telling you guys what to do. I am not suggesting that you all do anything. This is totally and utterly up to you guys. But this is what I'm going to do. So I've been talking to a couple of different people, and I think that's going to be my strategy. It doesn't mean I'm going to completely work my way out of silver. That would be foolish. But I am going to take some of my realized profits, especially on some of the items that I overpaid for early on.
I've done that too. Basically, currently I'm transitioning between one job and another, so I'm taking a little bit of that. And you and I've talked about it. The funny thing about medicine is that there's more politics in medicine than medicine in medicine. And you never know, any snafu at any level always seems to trickle down to the doctors and the nurses, whether they have worked in the ER or not. So
Right.
currently, I'm in that kind of position. It happens. In the past, I suffered through it. Because of this, I don't suffer through it. My last big time I sold was about a year ago with the sepsis, and it got me through 2 months of no income. So I have every intention on getting, for instance, if I bought a uh, collectible piece, you know, and it's getting close to that, I might take the profit or I might take the hit. And for me, selling it, if I sold something like this, I would probably take the hit. But on the other side of the coin, you have a chance to call capital loss. On the other side of that coin, again, if something ever happens and my wife is left up to her own abilities, I've left her with what I jokingly like to call the boring stuff, Eagles and constitutional and all that, so that she doesn't have as much chance to be taken advantage of. Um, you know, she's a smart lady, but this is not her thing. So I would rather sell the stuff and take the chance of breaking even now with the higher prices, or even a little bit of a loss, and save as much constitutional silver and government bullion silver and generic boring rounds, so that she can have a chance to make ends meet if something ever happened to me and she is on her own. But that's my take on it.
Yeah, and again, there are people commenting, Luther saying that when he was 14, gold was 336. Now it's this high. So yeah, and again, we talked about the reason that I'm taking some of my profits is because when I first started, I spent way too much money. Again, you know, the silver price was down, but premiums a year and a half, 2 years ago were insane.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people way overpaid for silver. And now we have an opportunity to realize some of the cost loss that was there. Now, granted, if you're going to be looking at holding for the long haul, you're not going to want to offload everything, but I am going to take and realize some profits and transfer into some other metals. I'm going to be talking here in a few days about platinum and palladium. We'll talk about some of that. I don't know much about it, done a lot of research at the request of Neil. And so I'm going to be doing some of that stuff. And so I did. Thank you so much for letting me know. I didn't realize my microphone was so hot. I have turned it down, so I appreciate that. What's up, Justin Freeman? How you doing? Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being here.
You gotta be careful with Neil. He'll sell you some osmium.
That's true. So there's a couple questions in here. One I want to address, and then we're going to get into today's topic. So Luther says, how do you judge numismatic premium over gold spot? Luther, that's a wonderful question. And I'm probably not the best person to answer it, primarily because it really depends. I think right now is a really good time to be buying gold, especially numismatic gold, because it's not increasing. The premium and stuff is not catching up to the actual price of the metal. And so while the coins are going up, they're not going up as quickly as the metal itself. And so now, especially with some of your higher end gold, it's a really good time to buy, especially like, MS 60, 62, 63, so on and so forth, with pre 33. You guys, Tiger's teacher, Lynette Zhang, talks about that. And we're at a time where I have now really started to agree with it's a really good time to do that. However, if you really want to know specifics, we can get some people on here to kind of delve into that. I don't want to mislead you and say, well, this is how you do it, because honest to God, I don't have that answer. So, but it's a great question. But talking about premiums and gold, let's go ahead and spin into our topic for today, because there's a lot of information that we have to cover, and I kind of want to go through this. So as stackers and collectors, as investors, when you look at our money, we take time to kind of reflect and look at what is money made of? What's its history? What's its value? We just had this great conversation about our metals and where it's at and what's going to happen, right? This is something that we do all the time. But when was the last time you really thought about the folks that make the money? How do they get their money? Now, this all stemmed for a question from a question in one of the shorts that I did about the Superman and the Batman coins, in particular Superman. And one of the comments is, I highly am against the U.S. Mint utilizing taxpayer dollars to do collectible items. The other part of that was the U.S. Mint should get out of collectibles and focus on its job, basically as the summation of what was stated there. And so I want to break down this first part and talk about where does funding come from? Where is this thing? So Tiger and I are going to do a deep dive into the business models of the Treasury, the two most important agencies in the U.S. financial system, the United States Mint and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, also known as the BEP. So when Tiger talks about the BEP, that's the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, okay? The biggest takeaway today that I want you guys to really come away with is whether or not Congress funds these agencies. This is going to be the big part. I'm not going to tell you because obviously you wouldn't have to watch the video and listen to the live, right? So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what happens if they're profitable? What happens if they lose? Where does the money go? How does this kind of stuff happen? What laws are engaged and what are the common myths about these? So let's kind of go in and first talk about the kind of the paradigm, the business model, and we'll start with the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. So Tiger, if you want to go ahead and start, why don't you start talking about how the BEP operates and how it functions?
Well, basically, the BEP operates differently because of how paper currency works. The Federal Reserve has an annual order for billions of Federal Reserve notes, which is paper, with the BEP. Federal Reserve pays the BEP only for the cost of printing the notes. They pay for the ink, labor, and equipment. They don't pay for the face value of the note. So they don't pay for $20 for a $20 note. They just pay for what it takes to make it. The profit on the paper money, which is the difference between the few cents it takes to print and, say, in this case, a $20 note, is the Federal Reserve's income, which they mostly return to the Treasury, and the BEP is just the printer that gets paid for its services. So the ability of these two agencies to operate independently is fairly recent, thanks to the acts of Congress. Before these laws in the past, they had to go to Congress every single year and beg for budget money, just like any other federal agency. These laws are why the U.S. Mint was able to open its doors and operations running normally, even during a government shutdown, because they don't depend on an annual budget or even fighting for an annual budget.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the U.S. Mint. So the U.S. Mint, again, we're going to talk about the laws here in just a minute and explain kind of how this rolls out. The U.S. Mint does a couple different things, but the one thing that's extremely important for everybody to understand about the U.S. Mint is that everything the U.S. Mint and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing do are issued by law. Okay, that's the big thing that everybody needs to understand this. They can't willy-nilly make stuff. Okay, that's going to be the first one. So their primary one is going to be circulating coinage. Okay, this is where they sell pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, whatever, at their face value, and they sell it to the Federal Reserve. Okay, so for example, the Federal Reserve buys a quarter. Okay, well, let's talk about the profit margin on a quarter. It only costs about 10 cents or so to make the quarter. If the extra 15 cents is a positive thing, they call that seigniorage, okay, meaning that it is a positive. Unlike the penny and the nickel, if you look at that particular subset, it actually costs more to make that particular item than it does for them to be able to buy it. So there's a negative seigniorage. Now, Tiger's going to reiterate that when we kind of get into this, especially when we're talking about the revolving fund. He already talked about that, but we're going to kind of break this down a little bit more, and I'll show you the laws and why that works. Now, why is this important? Well, there's one thing that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to kind of go through some of the myths and explain that. So what I really want to get to here, the bottom part, is that the mint also has numismatic cells. Now, the argument, the question, the statement that was issued in the video is that they shouldn't be involved in things like commemorative coinage, any kind of artistic coinage. But this is a fundamental tenet of the United States Mint, and it's done by law. These are managed by coin acts, and these coin acts indicate what is going to happen, what has to be on the coin, or what has to be on the metal, or what has to be on the proof set, or what has to be, whatever the element is. These are all done through acts. These are all legitimate legislative signed documents that have approved these particular items. Now, the comment that the United States Mint shouldn't utilize tax dollars, they don't. So let's go ahead, Tiger, and start talking about kind of the initial myth about this. And I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit more. We'll get into this really quick. I'm going to bypass the laws because we're going to get there very quickly. But I want to get into the myths. I'm shaking stuff up on Tiger. He's going to be like, what the hell?
He likes to do that to me.
So the first myth that I would like to address is, Tiger, true or false, the United States Mint and the BEP are funded by the taxpayers via Congress?
Well, that's false. They're funded by the revenue from the products they sell, which is the coins, the bullion, the notes, which is placed into their respective revolving funds, which means they're self-sufficient.
Okay, this is very important, self-sufficient. And so I'm going to be talking about one of the laws, and the laws in particular are that revolving fund. The revolving fund is specifically for BEP. And then for the other law, we're looking at the Public Enterprise Fund, or the PEF. Now, we'll be showing those here in just a minute, but it's very important. That first myth, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and the Mint are funded by taxpayer dollars, that is false. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, the United States Mint is not a normal government operated funding source. They're not built on appropriations. They are self-sufficient. They make money. If there's an overage or a seigniorage, then that money goes to a general fund. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. The secondary myth that I want to address, Tiger, true or false? All of the money produced generates massive profit for the government.
My friend, is also false. While most money is profitable, aka positive seigniorage, the US penny and nickel have consistently lost more to produce than their face value for years. They create what they call negative seigniorage, meaning a loss that must be covered by the profit of higher value coins, what I would call more of a loss leader. They're putting out the pennies and the nickels, which are still part of our way we pay for things, but they're making it up on the backside with other products.
All right, so we're going to go ahead. We just talked about this with Tiger. Another myth is that the Federal Reserve pays the BEP face value for the printed bills. You heard people say that, well, they buy it for, if it's 20 bucks, they pay 20 bucks. If it's 10 bucks, they pay 10 bucks. Is that true or false?
That's seriously not true. The Federal Reserve Pays only for the BEP for the cost of printing, somewhere maybe around 5 to 15 cents per bill, depending on the denomination. The Federal Reserve, the central banks, handles the actual profit and management of the money supply.
All right, so now here's where we talk about. No worries, Luther. It's all good. I'm glad you're on it. You're asking the right questions, brother. Here's that just means we're all on the same page. The question in this is that when we look at the Federal Reserve, we are not talking about the Treasury. They are separate entities. I had to talk with Tiger about this before we went on. It's really easy to confuse the Treasury with the Federal Reserve. They are not the same entity. They do not operate the same. The Federal Reserve doesn't get that excess money. They don't. It actually is put into the budget, and it's managed by those central banks. It's managed by that central account. And so it's really important for people to understand this is not the Treasury. And exactly, Neil, exactly what he said, that's where the quote unquote fraud comes from. Okay. So when we talk about this, it's not the Treasury, it's not the Mint, and it's not the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. This is very, very important for you guys to understand, because as we look at these things, what we see is we see a situation, a series of misinformation that gets people riled up. Because when you talk about taxes and stuff like that, that's where the central banks and the funding and all that other stuff, that's all on that end. But that's not the Treasury. That is not these two agencies. So it's very important, because most people get this wrong. Even in the banking industry, most people get this wrong. And out of all the things that we can say tonight, if you take nothing else from this, that is the most important piece. Okay. So the next one is the final kind of myth that we're going to talk about today. And that is, and we make this comment all the time, and Paula is always on me for saying this, but
I love her.
exactly, she's you know where you stand with her. True
Not
or
only,
false?
not only that, but when she gets on you, it's like, get her, Paul, get him. I love that lady. Okay, go on.
That's all right. True or false? The United States Mint prints paper currency.
That again is also false. The U.S. Mint makes coins. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing makes the paper bills. They're two
Okay.
separate agencies under the Treasury Department.
Yeah. Paula who? Yeah. Oh, see, there you go. Now, why?
I'd like to see him say that to her face.
Oh, he would absolutely. Why would this be important? Have any of you heard of the Richmond dime? Now, the Richmond dime was the one with the funky 5 on the face. It was the one that was made. And the story, if I remember correctly, it was kind of a cockamamie story. But the story was that there were people from the BEP at the Mint, and they happened to have the plates and something, and one of the 5s fell off and just happened to bounce into the die when the item was being struck, and that's why the 5 is struck into the cheek of this particular element, which is about the biggest set of hogwash, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing would never take the plates to the Mint. They don't have the right facilities. They don't have the right machinery. They don't have the right setup. They would never do that. The United States Mint representatives would go to the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to look at plates and things of that nature. So that cockamamie story that actually made it into a magazine, which they had to retract, that is a fun one. Livecoin Q&A did a really fun story on that. Talked about that. If you guys want to give Paula a ration of crap, tell her to tell her that you found a Richmond dime, and that'll rise her up. But again, this is one of the myths. This is one of the things that, and again, these are supposed to be people that are in our hobby that know this stuff, and they don't really understand that they are different. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to bring something up, and I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit on this. I think it's large enough that you can see this. So, Tiger, I want you to do me a favor. You talked about the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. I want you to talk about the first two laws and talk a little bit about what happened here.
Let me get into that here. The first laws, let's see here. The ability for these two agencies to operate independently is fairly recent, thanks to the acts of Congress. Before these laws, they had to go. I already said this already, but they had to go every year and basically ask for money. These laws are why the U.S. Mint was able to keep its doors open and operations running even normally, even during government shutdowns, because they don't depend on an annual federal budget. Um,
I don't think I sent you that actual piece of information, by the way, so I'm going to have to go through and do this.
okay.
I was just looking at what I sent you, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I didn't copy that piece and send it to you. So there are two things. You talked about the revolving fund. Okay, so the
Yeah.
revolving fund, and it's not when you're looking at this. Remember that the Bureau of Engraving and Printing is governed by a different set of laws. First one is that revolving fund. Okay, so that's the very first one. That's Public Law 81-656. Okay, this was established in 1950. So this is the first time where they stopped looking at the potential for that funding source, right, which was 1950. 27 years later, the Capital Investment Authority, which was a massive deal, allowed the BEP to charge the Federal Reserve enough money to buy expensive equipment. So they were actually able to upgrade and do this kind of stuff by utilizing this fund, that Capital Investment Authority. So what happens is, instead of them being limited to maybe 5 cents per bill, now they don't pay for the bill itself. They actually pay for the labor, the man hours, and all that other stuff. Why is that important? Well, it's important because now they can put that money into that revolving fund. And if they need new equipment, now they have a capability to utilize that money in order to purchase this. Why is that important? Because them and the Mint get to do this all without asking Congress. They are not tied to any government appropriation at all. This is an enterprise, okay? And this is important for people to understand. Now, when we look at this, oh, okay, then maybe I got the Richmond dime story wrong. There's another one with the 5 on the face. I thought it was the Richmond dime. Maybe it's not. I may have that story crossed. But it's the one with the 5 on the cheek of Roosevelt. Now, when we go to Public Law 104, Section 522, we get into my lead. Now, what is my lead? Well, my lead is this. Right? I told you I was going to tie the 1955 double die to this story. So every time you look at the 1955 double die, you'll be able to remember the Public Enterprise Fund, or the PEF. Now, the PEF was a law that finally gave the Mint the self-funding authority, making it a true enterprise. It covers all of its cost. It covers all of its purchase of metals, all of its equipment, all through coin and production cells. Now, I want you to think about what the U.S. Mint does right now. They're required by law to be profitable. Obviously, they have to self-sustain, and they have to do so without any taxpayer budgeting or appropriation. So in order to do that, they have to make enough money off of those elements. Well, we start to see the prices of things, and now these things start to make sense. But at what point does it become problematic for the collector? Well, now we move into phase 2 of the question that was there. Should the Mint even be engaged in this? And the answer is they're required to. They're required to because of something that happened called a law. And whenever there's a proposal, so we'll give a great example of the or the Jesse Robinson um, dollar that was supposed to be created. It was initially done by the senator from Texas, and that was introduced. They ran that through legislation. It was voted on. They actually referenced that information, said we're good to go, ran it through the proper policy, and then approved it. They worked on design and all that other stuff. Once all the approvals came through, the CCAC approved it, stamped law. Now they can actually produce this. The Mint isn't involved in that. Now, the Mint has designers and stuff, and when they get that law, it's governed with the information that they are now required to produce. Now, who gives them that? Well, it's not the Federal Reserve. It's the Treasury. The Treasury is the one who is assigned the fulfillment order of that law, and by law, they are required to hand that to the Mint, and the Mint produces the coins. Or if it is a bill, then they hand it to the BEP. So that process is extremely important for you guys to understand, because it shows you that the Mint doesn't just get to willy-nilly go in and create their coins. They don't get to just say, hey, let's make this new coin. Now, they have some leverage, and this was something in the Coin Show podcast when they interviewed the previous secretary of the Mint, or the Mint director, excuse me, which was Ventris Gibson. Now, Ventris Gibson said, I have no control over money. Anything that has a denomination, that is governed by law. I am required by law to fill that order in the exact specification of the law. I do have some leeway, she said, on metals. I do get to introduce stuff and make some suggestions. And this is why when we were having the discussion regarding the flowing hair, this was one of those things where it was like, this is really nice. But the decisions that were made from that gave her some serious feedback. And that feedback had some implications, especially when it related to the gold coin. See, the gold coin was required by law. The silver metal was something she created. She said, we need to make the silver metal, which gives people the opportunity to purchase this. That wasn't a law. Okay, that was, or she had her hand in suggesting on how that works. So there are nuances to this. And again, I might misspeak something, so I want to be careful about how I say that, because there are lots of legality in doing national coinage. But anytime something is passed through law, it is required by the Mint to fulfill that order. And so the person, the Secretary of the Treasury, who has the capability to say, print no more, mint no more, then the Mint stops. But they have to do based off of the Secretary of the Treasury's guidance. Okay, so that's important to understand. But that public enterprise fund introduced in 1995, again, this is why we have this particular coin, and this is why I said you can look at this, and it will remind you that starting in 1995, actually 1996 is when the law was actually enacted, they became self-sufficient. They were no longer required to work through grants or government-funded subsidies, not ever tax-funded, but there were subsidies that the government would give them, or private, not private, but like public pot monies, right? And so they, I mean, I don't know exactly how that worked through. I'm trying to find it and see if I can find out how that funding mechanism worked. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the initial source. All I know is that the original fund, the BEP fund, which it doesn't tell me how it was funded, was started in 1950. So that had been in place long before this 1995. So the U.S. Mint has had the Bureau of Engraving and Printing has been building a coffer of funds to sustain them, and then the U.S. Mint tapped into this in '95. So that's the general makeup of how the U.S. Mint and the BEP fund themselves. And again, I just wanted you guys, Tiger and I talked about this, and we just wanted to make sure, one, we dispel any myths, especially when we look at the community, stacking community. It's really easy to say the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are the same. They're not. The Treasury takes orders from the Federal Reserve, but the Federal Reserve is where we should have the problems, right? That's where people, 1913, that whole process, that's the Federal Reserve. Don't get the Federal Reserve and the Treasury mixed. They're totally separate. The Treasury is self-sufficient.
I usually say that the Federal Reserve isn't federal, and they really have no reserve. So it seems to fit the whole storyline, what we're talking about with how the thing seems to fit, because we had the Federal Reserve came into being over a process, as I understand history, between 2007 to 2013, finalized in 2000, actually not 2000, 1907 to 1913, forgive me, and was put into law in 1913. So, it's not federal. The Treasury is federal. Federal Reserve is not.
That's correct. Yeah, that's a correct statement. So what I want to do now is I want to kind of open the floor to any questions. And again, just remember, the U.S. Mint manages the Public Enterprise Fund. BEP is paid by the Federal Reserve at the cost of production through the revolving fund. Okay, so again, self-sustaining. The U.S. Mint, the Federal Reserve are not the same agency. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the Federal Reserve, not the same agency. The Treasury, the Federal Reserve, not the same agency. The Mint and the BEP are a part of the Treasury. So just make sure you understand that construct, make sure you understand that no tax dollars ever go into the creation of the United States money. So let's go ahead and open the floor to questions. If you have any additional comments, go ahead, Tiger.
Well, it's kind of interesting what we have currently in the way our system works now. But, being a person who loves history, and so do you, that's not how our coins started. Or some of our forefathers gave up their own personal silver to give us the metal to start making our own coins. And you know the story a little bit better than I do. So, George Washington gave up some of his stuff. I've just recently found out from conversations with you that Paul Revere was involved in copper, which I'm sure contributed to the pennies that we had at those particular days. So, I know you know that history a whole lot better than I, so I kind of thought it'd be kind of a cool little nuance while people are trying to figure out what questions they want to put into chat.
Yeah, I was, so I learned this just a little bit ago that he created, donated copper, actually got a lot of copper, but he actually created copper plates for minting some of the very first colonial coin and currency. And so I believe, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe he was one of the ones who created the original plate or the original die for the 1776 chain set. So there were a lot of people engaged in this that I just did not have any information on. I know he was really big on, I think it's, and I'm going to have to double check this because I might get the coin wrong, but I believe it's the pine tree coin from Massachusetts was something that he was really engaged in and a part of the copper coin that was there. But again, yeah, Paul Revere. It's I didn't know that till a couple weeks ago.
Wow, that's That's news to me. All I knew about Paul Revere was him notifying the citizens how the British were coming. Classic history, nothing more.
Um, Thanks, Dixie. Appreciate it. Matter of fact, I think I heard that from you, if I'm not mistaken. I think you're the one that dropped that trivia bomb. But yeah, great pieces of information. And so I just want to make sure people understand this premise. And I really want to thank the subscriber who commented on that video and said, hey, we need to look at this. I don't think that's right, because it really allowed for the opportunity to have a conversation. One, to do what this channel and Tiger's channel is about, to correct mis and disinformation. But what's really important about this is that a lot of people get angry about stuff they don't understand. And this really gave us an opportunity to do some education and help you understand taxes are not, we don't pay taxes to pay for our money. Now, I do like what Neil said, or was it Neil? No, it was David Carlisle, who said, my taxes don't pay for coins or currency, but I can use my coins or currency to pay my taxes. And that is because there is profit in it. And so, and it's not profit for us, it's profit for who? The Fed, the central bank. And so, again, yeah, so I just want to make sure we understand that. That was a really nice one. I do like that one. Education, yep, that's exactly right. So what questions do you guys have? Again, we want to open this up. We wanted to leave plenty of time just for general conversation. We have other stuff that we can talk about, but I want to open the floor to everybody. And what questions do you guys have? It could be stacking, could be collecting.
Well, I have a question since we now started talking about copper and Paul Revere. I typically have not been much into copper at all. I have a couple little sweet little pieces, but now that you're talking about Paul Revere and the beginning of our nation, and that he had some say in all that, I now am interested in listening to you, maybe not on Stack Collector, but on other things. Talk about the original cents that we were putting out, the large cent, all the others. They really didn't interest me, but if we're going to talk about our forefathers, all of a sudden, yeah, I'm interested. So that's something we can talk about, or I can watch some of your other programs, simply about the copper coins that have come out. And in addition to that, I should probably say another reason that got me thinking about it historically was I had the joy of hanging out for a short time waiting for my airplane. I hung out with Ringmaster Ray, and he showed me some of his uh, uh, books, and a lot of them had the pennies in it. And my God, they were really pretty. I didn't give them any credit, so it's just something for a future thing. Maybe not Stack Collector, but something for the future.
Luther, I've got to ask you a question. And I think we had this in chat the other day. 1,000 1-gram proof copper bars. That's a lot of 1-gram copper.
That's a lot of hard work.
You
Have
have
you
to,
seen
you have
anybody
to
make?
send me a photo of that sometime. That's I've never seen that. I don't know. I think I've seen maybe one or two 1, 5, 10-gram copper, but usually it's always ounce, half ounce, 10-ounce, kilo, stuff like that.
Copper has
Good morning. Holy smokes! I seen Eric Value's name, and I was like, good morning, but it's not morning. Good evening.
Copper's a lot harder to melt, and it solidifies a lot faster than silver. Um, I can do it, but I don't want to. I don't want to have to deal with it. With the products, I'm just tickled pink to make silver products. But if you've ever seen some of the people in our stacking community making things out of copper, you got to be really fast with that, because the electric furnaces will get you up to 2,000 degrees, which is just a little above the melting point of copper, where the melting point of silver is at 2,000. You got 300 degrees. a little more time to get done what you want done. But to make all those itty bitty pieces of copper, you got to really be good at it.
Yeah, see, I've never tried pouring. I don't know what it's like. I've never dealt with that aspect of it. Um,
Fun.
I've watched people do it. I've got a number of copper pieces that I've got from people to do that, but I've never actually poured any, so I don't know what that's like.
I would rather pour silver any day of the week. Copper, you don't have as much time to make up for things.
How's it
Uh,
going, bro? Thanks for coming in.
hey, bro, how's it going? Hope you got
So
the package I sent you.
I wanted to, I put something in chat. I'm sure that people were already tracking this, but I wanted to clarify a term that we used. I don't know if Dixie was asking for clarification, but it was seigniorage. And so what I did is I put the formula there. So seigniorage is equal to the face value of the coin minus the cost of production. And so if that cost of production is positive, i.e., it costs the mint 6 cents to make a dime, then the profit or the seigniorage is 4 cents. So I wanted to clarify that. Again, I don't know if Dixie was asking me for that clarification, but I wanted to clarify that's exactly what that's referencing. So when they talk about negative seigniorage is what we have with the penny and the nickel. It costs 5 cents to make a penny. It's worth a cent. So it's a -4 seigniorage. Ah, a new subscriber. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. The Country Humans Network. Thank you so much. I appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. All right, let's see what else we got here. I moved my screen. Now I got to get back. All right, any other questions? Look into Astro Forge. Okay, we'll do, Neil. I need to get with you afterwards. Tiger Stacker just gifted 5 memberships. Mandy's Candy, Mike Schlei's, The Grove's Bargaining Emporium, Holly Hawaiian. That's Howley Hawaiian. And 7 Stacks. Congratulations. Make sure you say thank you to Tiger Stacker. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you too.
Absolutely. So we've got about 15 minutes. There is one question that I have for you. Did you guys like the tie-in to the 1995 double die to this story? I was trying to find a fun numismatic way of referencing sorry. I was trying to find a fun way of referencing this story to a coin that you guys know about, are familiar with, kind of have an idea, general history of it. And I was like, this is a doubled die. I think this might be interesting. David Carlisle says he's going to refresh.
I kind of
Oh,
got, I kind of got it. You're using that as a stimulation for memory.
no, but that's the whole point of what numismatics is, right? It's understanding the history of things,
Mm-hmm.
but we do way better if we can relate to something or relate an event to something. And so most people who collect know about doubled dies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it didn't come out in 1955, or I would have done the 1955. But the 1995, there's a double die, and there's something that you can look at and see. And it's like, I think it's just it's a good reference. So Luther liked the connection. I'm hoping you guys do this. Hey, War, what's going on? Because again, I'm going to try and reference a lot of these stories back to coins or back to something to help people understand what they are and what they're in relation to, etc. Um,
Memory tools work really great. It's how I got through my early years in med school, because I didn't come from a medical family like a lot of them did. I had to use all sorts of memory tools to get things. In fact, I used one with you today because I always seem to get dis and misinformation screwed up in my head. And now I understand it because of the memory tool that I just came up with when you and I were talking before we went live. So use whatever memory tool you can to make things stick, people, because you to quote GI Joe, knowledge is power.
I'm going to share my screen. This is a photo that Luther sent me. This is one of his 1 gram copper bars.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of detail for a little tiny
That's
thing.
a lot of detail. Those are really cool.
That's beyond cool, and with copper nonetheless. Someone knows what they're doing.
But look at these 1 gram, 10 gram bars. Check those out. Ooh, a ship.
He'll be offering to buy that.
If you have more ships, Luther, I'd absolutely like to buy one of those from you. Because you know me, I'm a ship fiend. But those are really cool, Luther. Now, Luther sent me something else, and this isn't the conversation time for it, but I will be doing this and we'll be discussing it. He has done some really amazing examples of people to understand, like Vice coins, and I'm going to be talking. I'll be showing those. I'll probably do that on Saturday or Sunday. But he's given me a number of examples, and you see these things in when he's talking to people on Facebook. But they're very, very good photos. Really, really show what the Vice coin looks like. He created these to explain to somebody, I guess, if I understand that right, and said, "Well, look, let me go make one, and I'll show you. I'll take some photos of it, so you can see what I'm talking about." And he went and created them, and they're phenomenal photos. They really do tell you a lot about it. So I'm really interested and looking forward to talking about that. So I appreciate you sending me that, Luther. And I did send you. You'll get it when you get the package that I sent you today. I sent him one of my poker chips. So he should be getting that. Hip bone connected to the leg bone. Wars like they all tie together. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you couldn't. What do you mean you thought you couldn't? Um, if you're doing something like that for educational purposes, as long as you don't try to sell it and you discard it and you get rid of it, you destroy it, you don't try to pawn it off. It helps people understand what it looks like. I've done the same thing with whizzing. Now, that's not peeing on coins, by the way. It's actually the process of taking a high-speed wire wheel and basically doing the same thing that they would do to a die to kind of clean and polish up the die. But what's important about that is that if you know how it works, right, understand the how and the why, there's this thing called crystallized intelligence. And once people start to understand the how and the why, T-Bird member for 9 months, thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother. One thing that's important to understanding the how and the why with crystallized intelligence is once you get it, you get it. You just understand it. And so having examples where you can show things, another person who's really good about things is Amanda from Livecoin Q&A. She does amazing overlays. Chuck Daughtry from Copper Coins, he does amazing overlays as well. And overlays are a really good example of how to determine whether something is strike through, maybe it is a clash, maybe it's struck over the top of something. And so being able to superimpose one image on top of the other helps you to identify where those elements are. And that's extremely important when you look at being able to quantify or confirm that something is or is not a variety, an error, damage, um, a strike through, a strike over, whatever it might be, overstrike. Frosty, my trip is rubber hammers. Oh, cool. Very cool. What's up, Matt T? How you doing, bud? So we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to be respectful of Tiger's time. I tend to talk a lot. He knows that.
You never.
So anything else you guys want to chat about? Again, we wanted to bring this to you, leave open ends. We don't normally do a bunch of question and answer sessions. Um, but this was a fun one. We knew it'd only take about 35, 40 minutes.
I want to hear about the rubber hammer.
Um, so where does one go to make copper bars for educational purposes? Find somebody that pours, right? You can go to um, people like Ringmaster Ray. I know Ringmaster Ray. We just talked about Ringmaster Ray a little while ago. Angry Warrior Tackle Box, Kevin Rose, Big Red Bullion. There are so many people that do that kind of stuff. Get plugged into Trip. Do you know Angry Warrior and Ringmaster Ray and stuff like that? Because if you do, reach out to them and ask them that question, and they can get you connected. Another really good one is oh my gosh, I just went blank. It's I can see Reckless Metals.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve is extremely knowledgeable, very friendly, and if you want to ask about how he does stuff, or if you're interested maybe in having him walk through that, I believe on Wednesdays he does a session where he does information and shows people how he pours and talks about his process, and it's really cool. So if you're not connected with him, Trip, if I can have one of my moderators reach out and grab Reckless Metals link, throw that in there. Go in, check out one of their lives. They sell on Saturday evenings, 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then you can go in and say, hey, Frosty sent me to you. I have a question regarding copper bars. And he'll tell you to get a hold of him via email. And then you can ask him your questions. He's a great guy. Takes a little bit of time. He's extremely busy. But he's been really good to answer my questions. He'll be another good source for you. And then he's not the only one. There's a lot of other people. These are just people that are readily coming off the top of my head.
One person that I think Angry Warrior Tackle Box learned a lot of techniques off of Reckless, and he and I have talked a little bit about techniques, thanks to you. I'm planning on getting back into my pouring station and trying some of these techniques. And the more we get to know each other, the more I mean, heck, I'm a amateur compared to Reckless Metals and to Angry Warrior. But wouldn't you know it, when I did the video, when I showed how I poured that particular piece, he's like, wow, I never knew that you could do that to get the mold out of the sand. And he's been using that technique ever since and getting much better results. So, you might think that, you're uh, so much a novelty in our community, or any particular niche in our community. And next thing you know, you have someone who's doing things like this, who is seriously doing better than I'm doing at this current time. And they turn around and say, hey, I like that technique. The next thing you know, you have a new friend in the hobby, and that particular niche of the hobby, and you're learning how to do something, with different techniques, and whether you're antiquing, whether you're pouring, whether you just want to learn more about different coins, or whatever it is that you want to get into. What's nice about this community is, for the most part, everybody's just very nice to each other, and they support each other. So I can't say that enough. I stumbled into a very nice community simply because I realized that we are going down a bad pathway with our currency. And now I'm 4 years into stacking. And look, I got a numismatist as a buddy who tells me stuff that I had no clue. I can tell you science. I can show you all sorts of other things. In fact, I got a video coming out tomorrow or maybe Saturday that I'm going to drop about 2 different techniques in verifying that's more scientific. But I'm not a numismatist. This guy can tell you. And making friends has, this is the nicest thing about the friendships. It helps everyone.
Well,
So
and this is part of my primary talk about on my channel, right? And this is where you and I built Stack Collector to further that, and it's all about network. I know a lot of information about coin collecting, not because I work in a coin shop, not because I've been a dealer or a distributor, not because I've been stacking and collecting since I was 5, but because I'm really good at doing research. That it's part of what I do for my job, but I love learning things. But when I learn things, I don't like to just sit on the information. I want to share it. And I listen to people like Matt and Mike of the Coin Show podcast. And I hear something and I go, ooh, I need to look into this. And then I talk to Mike and he's like, Frosty, you're really good with stories. Why don't you do more stories? And I'm like, ooh, you know what? I love doing it. Maybe I should do a few more. And I'm doing that Saturday mornings, right? I start with a hoard story or a mint theft story or something like that. And we find strengths in relationship. And that's what this community is about. We are going to fight. We are going to argue. We are going to disagree. And that's normal. But if we can get along enough to be respectful and have integrity, now you cross the integral line with me, we're going to talk. You and I are going to have a conversation. But if you and I don't agree on something, i.e., tiger and goldbacks,
here he goes again.
we just understand that, hey, we can give each other crap about this because we know where we stand and we're okay with that. We understand the other person's vantage point, probably better than we understand our own in some cases. We learn every time we talk about it, and that's how you grow. I am going to do one thing at the very, very, very end. It's not tied to Stack Collector. I didn't talk to Tiger a little bit about this. And Luther, I'm a master debater. Be careful how you say that. I love to debate. I love to discuss. I like to learn and get other points of view. I frequently, Paula Bloom said this a number of times, she is staunch and firm in her belief, but if you can give her the information and you can explain why she might be incorrect, she might change her mind. And in fact, her and I have done that, and I went, Paula, that's not correct. Here's the information. This is where you go. And she retracted her statement and came back and said, you were absolutely right. Now, it doesn't happen that way very often. Usually it's the other way around. Usually I'm the one that's wrong and she's like, it's close. But this is how we grow, right? And I surround myself with people smarter, more connected, wiser, have been around the hobby much longer, that deal with those areas that I'm not smart in. And so one thing I learned a long time ago, and Tiger and I have really discussed about this, and it's deference to expertise. And that is, I don't have to know everything. I'm not even going to freaking try. But what I am going to do is I'm going to find those gaps in my knowledge, and I'm going to find those people who know it. I'm going to cultivate and establish a relationship. If the person that I know has somebody that's smarter than them, I want to meet them. I want to talk to them. I want to interview them. Maybe it may not be on the channel, but I want to get some questions. I really want to find out because I want to get to the people who genuinely know. Jack Young, Jack Riley, Zach. I don't even remember Zach's name. Young kid, knowledgeable. This kid, younger than me he's half my age, could dwarf me in any conversation about counterfeits. Absolutely walk all over me. So it's not about age, it's about experience. And so don't look at the younger generation as being less than you. Don't look at the older one. Oh, Zach Rapp. Okay, thanks. Don't look at the older generation as being out of touch. There's a lot of information that can be learned. One thing when I do stakeholders analyses is I will stop and go back to people and say, who's brand new at this? Well, we're all seasoned experts. No, who's the brand new person? Who just got brought on? Well, that would be XYZ. Go grab them. They need to be a part of this conversation. Now, people initially looked at me and like, what the hell are you thinking? Why? They're brand new. They're not going to have any clue. And I said, that's exactly why they need to be here. They're going to ask us questions that we can't ask ourselves because we're so deep into the process, we miss it. We need those people. When you surround yourself with a network, you need people smarter than you and not as smart as you because they keep you honest. And it's important to do that. Richard Metcalf, Tiger, can you read that comment?
Don't be afraid to ask. The only stupid question is one unasked.
That could end the stream. I would be good with that. Those are words of wisdom. Odds are, if you have a question, everybody else does too. Sorry, Tiger, go ahead.
But you also have to keep in mind, we were once newbies.
Exactly.
And if we didn't have the people that helped us, we wouldn't be where we're at. And, we need to give that kindness and that knowledge so that more and more people in our country know what real money is, know how to interpret things, know ways to find counterfeits so that they don't buy it. So many very important topics in our community, whether you're a collector, numismatist, stacker, something in the middle. If it wasn't for the people that I ran into early on, and once again, we're going to mention my very first YouTube teacher, but also I got all sorts of information from my local pawn shop. She and her right arm Teresa are a wealth of knowledge. They taught me stuff that is so basic but yet so necessary. What is the difference between a clad and a silver coin? Those are things that if we don't embrace the newbies, our community will slowly die, and the people who are going to be hurt are our families because we haven't prepared them for what's coming. So welcome the newbies, always welcome the newbies. It's a double-edged sword. Some people complain, well, the more people we bring into the community, the more the prices are going to go up and there's less for us. That's kind of a selfish way of looking at it.
Sorry, I just read Neil's comment. I should have put myself on mute. As soon as you think you know it all, you're a redneck.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So Vincent makes a good point. Okay, many disagreements on our community. We don't have to agree to learn from each other. Where there's money, there will always be disagreement.
True.
Period. End of story. Okay. Where there's money, there will always be disagreement. You will disagree on the definition of an error. You will disagree on how something was done. You'll agree on some parts, but you won't agree on the terminology or the language. Where there's money engaged, and it doesn't matter if we're talking finances or minting, numismatics, or whatever, where there's money engaged, there will always be arguments. What is important here is to act with grace and integrity. That's what matters. The moment you break down integrity and you start doing things that are shady, You start manipulating people for gain. You start putting out misinformation for personal benefit. I'm done with you. I'm done. I don't need those people in my life. And I learned a long time ago, and Tiger and I have had a very specific conversation about this, that if I detect impunity or impropriety, I'm out. Because I have worked really hard to get people to understand that I am here to help the community. And there are people that I am aligning myself with who have that exact same mission. Luther loves this hobby. Matt and Mike, Paula, Amanda, Shane, Sean, Adam, all those guys, right? They all have a desire to give good, solid, reliable, truthful information. They have a mission, they have a goal. Chuck Daughtry, Eric Beyer, right? They talk about it. They have a desire to teach and to learn. Sometimes they wax, they wane, because you know what? Man, it's hard work to educate. It's hard work to educate. And sometimes you need to step away. And that's where it's important to have a mantle where you can lean on other people. A great thing is I just did a video and it was picked up by a channel and they were pushing out my content. And I really, really appreciate it. The person that we were interviewing was Beth from the Anti-Counterfeiting Educational Foundation. Did an interview. It was an amazing conversation. Beth is an absolute sweetheart, really neat person. But because of that information, they shared that out. I really appreciate it. It was going to help you that dropped that information. I didn't ask them to do it. They picked it up. They recognized the importance of that. When you find things where you have common beliefs and like beliefs, we can work together. Now, where I have a problem is I don't make money. I don't sell coins. I don't buy coins for the purpose of the channel. I don't do auctions. I don't run games. I'm an education and information dissemination channel. That is what I am. I tell stories. I give history. I give you the facts of what I can understand. And if there's something wrong, I try to do my best to give unbiased opinion. I'm always going to be biased to some degree, but give an unbiased opinion. Tiger and I came together to ensure that we did this not only in the numismatic community, but engaged the stacking and collecting communities as well. That's why we call ourselves Stack Elector, right? Mm-hmm. Why is this important? Because it's just a good thing to do. It's just a good thing to do. And so, again, if I detect impunity or a malay, or what's the word I'm looking for? A malice towards making profit over genuine honesty, I'm out. I won't do it. You start selling coins as varieties and damaged, but they're damaged, and you try to I'm done. I can't do that. I can't live with that. I've actually talked with Mike about that too, where it's, we see some of these things and people are genuinely trying to grow themselves at the sake of others, and that's not cool. We have enough problem in knowledge is the reward, Frosty, not profit. Exactly. And I just want people to understand if I'm somewhere and I don't go in there, doesn't mean that I found them to be wrong or that I have a problem with them. I'm also extremely busy. Now, Tiger, if you will appease me for just a moment, I want to ask a question. I can take this off Stack Elector and do this again, but I want to ask a question to chat. And you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I want to offer a kindness right now. Is there anybody in chat who has been affected by the government furlough? Have you been set aside, let go, while this appropriation situation is in effect? The reason that I'm asking this question is because I know this impacts a lot of people. And I did live the other day when I knew it was going to be imminent, that I wanted to make sure people had the information that Richard Metcalf, I didn't sub for Gauze. I sub because I like your content. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. If you're affected by this, I want to make a statement. Now, this statement is not condoned by Stack Elector. Tiger can come back and say that he agrees or he doesn't. That is totally up to him. But I want to say this because there's something extremely important that needs to be stated. I want to remind each and every one of you listening of something that's extremely important. The furlough has nothing to do with the people. It has nothing to do with the agency they work for. It has nothing to do with the team they work for. It has nothing to do with the department they work for. It has nothing to do with the section they work for. It has nothing to do with the job they do. And it has nothing to do with America's perception of you as a people. This is an appropriation issue governed by law. We simply didn't get funded. DOD, whatever other government agencies that didn't get their appropriation cannot pay somebody if they don't have the money to pay them. This is a law. Okay, it's important that people understand this. Folks, don't get caught up in the media of essential versus not essential. Don't get caught up in the mix of understanding. The only people that understand this are those folks that work with DOD. There's a language utilized in DOD or in these government agencies for critical, non-critical, essential, non-essential. These are mission discussion types. It has nothing to do with our worth as people. I want people to really understand this. But if you are somebody that has been affected by furlough, hear these words and hear them now. Do not sit idly by. I'm going to be preaching for just a moment, folks. If you don't want to hear it, you can leave. But not only is this biblical, it's good, solid practice. Idle hands are the devil's work. Don't sit around idle. Find something to do. Find something to focus on. Find some part of yourself that you want to grow. Find some part of yourself that you want to better. Start a journey. Learn a new language. Learn how to cook that dish you've always wanted to make. Be a better wife, a better husband, a better partner. Reconnect with friends. That dispute that you had with a neighbor, go talk to them and see if that's resolved. Find something that you can do to better yourself. Whether it's connecting with an old friend, volunteering at a church, supporting your local animal shelter. It doesn't matter. Don't sit idly by. And during this time frame, understand this, that even though things don't work out the way they want them to, we can always give grace. We can always show kindness. Give it openly and freely. Because only in difficult times do we genuinely find out who we are. I heard something a long time ago, and I've referenced this a number of times on my streams. A strong man, a strong woman are created by difficult times. Difficult times creates those people. But those people create better times. And better times create moderately controlled, moderately sustained, moderately handled attitudes and thoughts and beliefs. That time frame, that type of person creates more kind of difficult, stringent time. And those people that don't understand create the difficult times. And difficult times then cycle back. We're in a very difficult time, folks, and we have the opportunity to grow and become stronger, to become better men and women, to become better people, to become better fathers, to become better mothers, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whatever your status and title in relationship is. We have the opportunity to be better at finance. We have the better opportunity to better understand the realities. That's the discussion today about taxpayer money and how it gets affected. Don't sit idly by. If you're affected by this furlough, find something to do. And I offered this the other day. If you didn't go see the live stream, you want to go see it, go check that out. It's about imminent furlough. I offer my services. I have studied and I have read the Office of Personnel Management policies. I have looked over that stuff to try to identify what actually is supposed to happen, how it needs to happen. If you need references, I have worked with Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines on getting social service stuff, who to talk to. I can get you emails, telephone numbers. If you are in a place where you're struggling because of this furlough, and you're connected to the service, you're connected to the War Department, you're connected to anybody that's associated with this particular funding snafu, let me know. And I will do everything in my power to connect you. I will sacrifice teaching coins, talking silver gold, to ensure that our community is taken care of. If you have friends, families, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whatever, that are affected by this, send them to me. I will not have all the answers, but I can promise you I have enough resources to get you into the hands of somebody who does. So if this time is affecting you or affecting one of your loved ones, I am here to help, and I will do everything in my power to do so. So thanks for letting me say that, Tiger. It's
No
extremely
problem.
important with me because I really am about community and really growing this and making sure that our community is taken care of.
Well, you're not only doing that for in this situation, you've done it for so many other situations too. People who've gone through bouts of depression, whether they're military or not. The the big open heart sometimes shines through, which is probably one of the reasons that I'm grateful for the friendship that I have with you. Because there aren't that many nice people like with that level of commitment that I've met in my life. So everyone in the chat or who will be listening to this later, this is a real person with a real heart and highly intelligent. And sometimes you don't see the heart because the intelligence is there, but sometimes you see the heart because the intelligence is really letting you see what is the driving force for the intelligence. I think I fit the same bill. I'm not as much of a researcher as Frosty as I am, but I'm not. Um,
Well, we'll interrupt you there. You are in a different capacity. And again, I don't want everybody to say, well, I'm not, I don't want anybody to compare themselves to me. Please, by God, I make,
no, I
I have
realize I
problems.
have a different thing going on.
Yeah.
You, for instance, you can tell anybody anything for the most part about coins, and I listen and I learn and I try to retain. But when I'm dealing with metals, I'm dealing with not so much interested in the history until I hear something like Paul Revere, but I also uh, I I hit it hard on the science side of the fence. That's a thing that I love to do, and Metals has given me a chance for a little bit of the science person in me that I used to be as a child to come out as an adult, and enjoy teaching all of you how to protect yourself, and I do that from the kindness of my own heart, and I try to help everybody get protected. So, I mean, we hit it from two different aspects. Frosty can get you in touch with people who might be able to help you. Me being a physician, I help people every time I go to work. Uh, it's still doing God's work, and that really is the ultimate end all, be all, for at least for me. I'm not saying that I'm less. It's just that, you know, Frosty is a great computer guy who can get into a computer and research something to the nth degree, and I can do some, but mostly my skill has always been focused on helping God's people. Doesn't matter what religion you are, helping God's people get back to being healthy, or preventing them from passing away, or preventing their disease from becoming something worse. So, I mean, it's we this community and any other community needs diversification of skills. Not everyone has all the skills. Very few of us have a bunch. But the reason I mentioned it is because I do wish I was a computer research guru to your degree, and but that's okay. So I
In
was.
4 lifetimes, you'll get there.
What's that?
In 4 lifetimes, you'll get there.
That reminds me of. You remember the old TV show Kung Fu?
The cartoon or the actual Lafferty or whatever his name is, David
No, no, no.
Faraday.
David Carradine, that was originally written by and for Bruce Lee, but they gave
Yes.
it to David Carradine. Well, years later, they did a movie for TV, where David Carradine's son, that he didn't know about, was being controlled by the evil Fu Manchu. And in the process, in that movie, he tells the young fellow, who was played by Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, says, it will take a lifetime for someone to master one technique. And Brandon Lee's character asked David Carradine, which technique have you mastered? He says, I've mastered them all. And when you said that comment, that just brought back that line from that made for TV movie. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries. It's amazing what gets called back. But again, I didn't want to do this. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, folks. I've really paid attention to this. I have, when I worked for the Air Force, and when I was in the Navy, I suffered through not only furlough but sequestration. A lot of people remember that from 2012. So I have done a lot of research on this, and again, it's about helping the community. So if you do, again, if you have somebody that you need to share that information with, again, it's all free information. There's no charge for time service or anything like that. It is just trying to help. So I wanted to make sure that stuff was set up. We are way over time, Tiger.
I know. You talk too much.
I do talk too much. I have a problem. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for supporting Tiger and myself. For those of you who have been here, thank you so much. For the country, holy smokes, I forgot the name of it already. Let me get back there. The Country Humans Network, thank you for subscribing. Conformitus, Power Girl, Miles Fitzgerald, Jose Alberto, Jamie Clarkson. Thank you all for subscribing today. I definitely appreciate you. If you guys have any questions about numismatic or stacking items, go subscribe to Tiger Stacker. Make sure that you ask questions about stacking, collecting, stuff of that nature. Him and I will work together to answer anything on the numismatic side. But go check him out. He does a lot of stuff, has a lot of fun. But again, just another member of the community that's really trying to help us out in that fashion. So I definitely appreciate you all. You have any closing remarks, Tiger?
Well, if you please subscribe to this guy if you have a channel as well. But when you hit the subscribe, you run the risk of YouTube taking you back out unless you do the following things. Watch a video, make a comment, hit the like button, hit the bell notification. That will lock you in and YouTube won't take you back out. Frosty's building his channel. I am very close to 2,000 subscribers, and I'll be doing a 2,000 subscriber giveaway party when we get there. And I'll be making an announcement of that later. But we're here for you. Different styles, different techniques. I don't do numismatic very well at all, but I love the science. And I'm dropping a video tomorrow comparing two different types of verification techniques and their strengths and weaknesses. So feel free to come to that, and I hope you like it because I think it was a really good topic to give everyone, especially the newbies, and I'm all about the newbies. But please help Frosty grow, and if you would be so kind, help me grow. I would really greatly appreciate that. Thank you for Pedro for dropping the link. I don't know, what am I, about 14 people away from 2,000? That'd be like really cool. So, enough said on that topic. We're here for you. And as long as God allows us to breathe, we will always be here for you. So that's all I have to say.
All right, folks. Well, hey, you guys, thanks so much for supporting Stack Collector. Be well, be blessed. And you know what? We will see you guys in the streams. Take care.
Night, everyone.